Welcome. I am Jay Rosenthal.
And I'm Reva, Seth.
And this is the Anchorpoint, a podcast where we talk to the people building solutions for a world under pressure, from climate risk and wildfire to resilience, innovation, and the systems that keep communities standing. The Anchorpoint is about practical ideas, which we have focused on this podcast, real leadership, and the technologies and policies shaping what comes next. And because resilience in this case is not theoretical, it's built, tested, and improved in the real world, we talk to people doing just that. And we're going to get right to it, Reva, if that's okay.
I'm excited for this one. We're talking about Canada.
We're talking about Canada, which is, anybody that knows anything I do, is my favorite topic, notwithstanding the recent Olympic hockey. But we're here with Stevie O'Brien. We'll bring her on. She's the principal and founding partner at Barrick Public Affairs. She served as the chief of staff to the Minister of Public Services and Procurement Canada. And prior to that, the chief of staff to the Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction. And in her stints in the public and private sector, she also was the chief of staff to the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. So she obviously knows of what she speaks. And Arif Khimani, the president and CEO of MobSquad, we're going to bring him on as well. And he brings over 12 years of financial experience to the MobSquad team. We'll talk about exactly what they do, including senior roles at both Amazon and Procter & Gamble. Are you ready for me to bring them on, Reva?
That sounds good. Let's start.
Let's do it. Welcome both.
Hello.
Oh, thank you. Hello. Everybody looks and sounds great. I want to go to Stevie first, if that's okay. Give us a little bit, first, both of you, give us a little bit of background about the companies and what the work that you do. Stevie, we'll start with you.
So we started Barrick Public Affairs in the middle of last year. It was myself and four other former chiefs of staff to recent senior Canadian federal ministers. So we are really a boutique focused on engaging with the federal government in Ottawa and bring expertise from everywhere, from finance, procurement, defense, environment, and energy.
Pretty much the whole gamut of what's going on in Ottawa, yeah?
It is. We are very relevant to what's happening at the moment, yes.
That's good. It's a good time to start a business exactly where you are and exactly at what you do. Arif, give us a little bit about MobSquad.
Yeah, thank you. Happy to. So MobSquad is a Canadian-based company. We provide technical and consulting services with the world's best tech professionals from Canada. We work mostly with US-based startups and scale-ups that are looking for creative, innovative solutions to access highly skilled tech professionals, including many of those that they may have already worked with. So the most common, use cases that we see for ourselves is US companies who are working with tech professionals who can't stay in the US because they have expiring US visas or they lost the H-1B lottery, as well as US companies who are looking to work with tech professionals who are abroad who may not have been able to get into the US. Similarly, they didn't win the H-1B lottery, so they don't have a work visa, or companies just aren't willing to pay the $100,000 new fee for successful H-1B applicants. And so what we do is run our business out of Canada. We employ everybody directly. We help them get work permits in about 6 weeks and permanent residency in about 2 years. And then we handle everything in Canada. So we have the entity. We operate out of Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, and Halifax. And then we do payroll, benefits, professional development, community engagement, and all the fun things around that.
I could have said the same thing to you that I said to Stevie. It's a good time to be in that business that you're in.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly interesting times, and they keep getting more and more interesting. So yeah, we're happy with it.
Fair enough. Reva, go ahead.
So maybe we should jump into it, where what we're really looking to do here is wildfire companies are deeply interested in Canada, from the US, from Europe. So maybe, Stevie, you could just start us off structured and address any questions.
Reva, you're super choppy.
Have about
Reva, you're super choppy, but I know what she was going to ask, Stevie, so I can do it. For a company based in the US or UK or even Australia, what's the single most important thing that they need to understand about how Canada is structured before they go to market here? And maybe even some common misconceptions, because I think there are probably many.
Okay. Well, I think common misconceptions are that, Canada is, this sort of a large country, but a small market, and that it may operate sort of uniformly from coast to coast to coast. Whereas it is an interesting federal dynamic of 13 different provincial markets or provincial territorial markets and a coordinating federal arm, and that it all sort of works when it works well in a sort of nice balanced dance and different with a pretty clear division of who's responsible for what. Although I would say in the wildfire management space, it is one of the sort of blurs between federal and provincial jurisdiction. Another misconception would probably be that Quebec is just any jurisdiction, like anyone else, and it's quite its own unique space.
And what, I mean, I don't need to pry, but and I live here in Canada, but what makes Quebec so unique? And I ask because it is, of course, a massive province and an important part of the country. But what makes it so unique? Is it that it runs its own way? Is it the language? Is it all of it?
Beyond the language speech, they've usually are far. They've often created their own jurisdictional frames and regulatory structures for various things. They don't always dance in the same tune as the other provinces, and they may zig when everyone else zags. It's important to obviously include them in a sort of national discussion. They are a major population base, a major territory, and very significant in the wildfire space. But I think if you're an outside business coming in and think you can just take the same approach to Alberta, BC, and Ontario that you're going to bring to Quebec, I think you'd be in for a rough ride.
Yeah. Arif, I see you smiling. I imagine you have similar thoughts there. But I want to ask you specifically, you've been building a bridge between North American companies and Canadian talent and infrastructure for almost a decade. What do global companies looking to be part of the Canadian wildfire investment moment need to know about their options? And is it similar to what Stevie said, is to have localized game plans for nationwide rollout?
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% right. I think there's a lot of ways to think about Canada. So as a brand new market that you may want to enter, as something you might want to explore, as a source for talent. So I think depending on what your goals are, that can help you determine how to enter Canada, when to do so, in what capacity, what's important. One thing I want to highlight, just because of the space that we're in, is that the talent here is extraordinary. And I think this buckets into two areas that we think about. Starting locally, there's amazing local Canadian talent. We unfortunately have a lot of experience with wildfires in Canada and a lot of climate related events here, and so there's kind of a natural fit there. And so that's something that I think companies should definitely think about. But in addition to what's available locally, there's quite a few specific immigration programs that can help eligible employers attract and retain the best professionals from around the world, especially when it comes to tech and especially related to some engineers. There's a massive advantage for companies who want to think about this in an ambitious way. It can take time for employers to become, as I said, eligible to access some of these expedited streams, but it's certainly worth considering and can offer a bit of a different lens than companies might be used to seeing when they're exploring this in the US alone.
Yeah. I want to ask you, Stevie, back to you, because you did sort of touch on this in your intro. When we talk about Canada's wildfire investment, funding comes from both the federal and provincial levels of government. How does that division work? And you said it was blurry, I think, in practice. And where should global companies be looking first? Like, is it start in Ottawa and branch out? Is it province by province and branch in? Like, what are your thoughts?
So operationally, and the major sort of immediate deployment of wildfire technology and a lot of the procurement happens at the provincial level. They take the front line on sort of the operational side of things. But increasingly, Ottawa and the federal government are playing a role as wildfires become more prevalent, more destructive. They are playing a larger role in scaling up national technologies, a coordinating role across different jurisdictions in provincially, across provinces and internationally, but also they've invested and they have the financial ability to look towards the technologies that need national scale up, that maybe need to be coordinated across the provinces, that they have the ability to fund large scale pilots. And so I think if I was a company entering Canada, I'd look for a provincial sort of entry point and maybe partner, but I would simultaneously be talking to the federal government, looking for funding opportunities, finding national champions to help support a coordinated effort, and be that sort of company that isn't just operating in Alberta, but gets the support to sort of operate and be set the standard across the nation.
All right, my next question is for you. I certainly find this talking to U.S. companies out here in the Bay Area is that they think coming to Canada is just a natural extension of their existing market. I'd love to just get your thoughts and observations on that mindset and what you would advise in terms of how they should think about market entry to Canada.
Yeah, so I mean, I think in some ways that can definitely be helpful to an extent. There's things that are similar. A few examples, of course, like the proximity is obvious. You have time zone congruency. You have a lot of business culture congruency between the countries. And when it comes to tech, especially in this market, the IP protection is really strong in Canada, which is important. I know as people consider what other countries they should be operating in and where they want to have some of their core work product done, right? That's not always the case when you're looking at some of the offshore options. And I think, that being strong, especially in the world that we're talking in, is important. But I think there's also really important nuances between the countries that are worth knowing. And I think if you enter the Canadian market expecting it to be a carbon copy of what you have in the US, you will run into, surprises and issues, some bigger than others. There's examples to this, like one that we come across a lot when we're dealing with US companies is just the difference between US at-will employment and how things work in Canada. Employment law is much more employee friendly in Canada. It's much more difficult to terminate for cause, for example, and obviously that's the situation nobody wants to be in, but knowing that kind of stuff can be helpful as you're setting up. And similar to the US, I think a lot of US companies, when they're thinking about Canada, initially thinking about it as a monolith. But similar to the US, there are differences between the provinces, right? There are different corporate tax rates, there's different sales tax rates, there's different regulatory environments. Some prioritize certain things over others. And even immigration policy can differ province to province. So obviously immigration is controlled at the federal level, but provinces have the ability to nominate candidates for permanent residency in priority areas for their region. And so depending on how you're operating, that can be important. And then one more thing I'll just mention here is like Quebec can be very different in a lot of the ways that it operates. It has French language law that you really need to comply with. It can result in huge fines and regulatory issues if you don't. They have also different immigration understanding. So I think, the more understanding you can build of these benefits and drawbacks and nuances, the better. Like, I think, by and large, it is going to be a more similar environment to operate in than other places. Like, if you were to open in India or Brazil, for example, like Canada will be more like the US than that. But, I still think it's worth, understanding these differences. So you come in eyes wide open and, not just from some of the caveats, but also for some of the benefits that Canada has and just understanding how you can take advantage of those where there's difference versus the US.
Yeah. Stevie, I want to sort of pick up on that front because I think it's a major difference between what happens in the U.S., the federal government, or even provincially, is sort of the procurement process and how sort of that runs. And Canada has an expedited procurement mandate in this budget. And first, explain how procurement works in Canada. I think that's important to know as it relates to sort of wildfire infrastructure tech. And then share insights on sort of how expedited procurement system that the Prime Minister announced in the last budget, how that is sort of rolling out and how that will work.
So as I started saying before, at the provinces are primarily responsible for the sort of immediate tech on the ground purchases. They are the ones running the operational side of things, where the federal government is often investing in technologies that have the ability to scale up, maybe investing in sovereign capability and or some of the things that are maybe more tech heavy or require a national lens, maybe AI driven technology, satellite monitoring that would be able to provide data across the country at a national level. So it really is that dual purpose there, and I think that a company coming to Canada should really try and think at both levels if they want to be if they want to take more than just a small footprint in a province. The Since Prime Minister Carney has come in, he has definitely been pushing to move faster, to build more, and taking this sort of expedited. Let's move faster. We have to make and invest in Canada. And there's sort of two things about that I would pull that I'd want to mention for this group. So first off, there is a significant amount of money that has been put into Canada's defense. They're not only are they on track to meet the 2% NATO target this year, there's going to be striving to hit closer to 5% on a go forward, which is going to be a huge increase in funds available. A good chunk of that is going to be towards dual use technologies. And I think a lot of the companies operating in the wildfire space have the ability to create those sort of dual use technologies that will be really attractive to the government, and not just attractive, something that they may be able to actually invest in. So if you're talking to the environment, if you're talking to transport, or you're talking to public safety, if you can frame the technology in such a way that it also has something that could be counted towards a NATO target and could be considered dual use, it's going to have not only a nice reception, but potentially funding to purchase it. The flip side of the procurement push is Canada has rolled out a Buy Canada policy. And this, not just with respect to defense, but just sort of writ large. And this is a response to sort of the tariff changes and trade disputes that we've seen sort of erupting over the last 14 months. So a company coming in just should be aware. They should look to see if what sort of tax base they would have in Canada, what employment opportunity, what sort of job creation would exist in Canada, whether and how they can integrate and work with Canadian supply chains, so that they can they can make sure that they are not being disadvantaged by any sort of Buy Canada policy, and they could still fit into that lane.
Interesting.
That's
I see
actually
Arif shaking his head.
jumping point for the next question, Arif, which is, what are the options that companies coming into Canada and have, especially against what Stevie just outlined, and dual use technology and Buy Canada, and this sentiment of looking to support domestic?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and I have that in my notes as well. There's been so much focus on this, and a lot of the details are still being ironed out, but a lot has come out already in announcements, and so it is worth following. I think the two meaningful points there is definitely an emphasis on moving faster and getting things done. So speed is important. And there is also just a lot of new initiatives with real funding attached to them that are worth investigating to see if your particular application of technology can apply to that. And some of them are very broad, right? So they're not, as a narrow definition of what defense might have looked like 20 years ago. There's a lot of broad application there. There's, stuff for drones and autonomous unmanned, things. There's AI, quantum, there's a lot of different what you would think of as pure tech plays that could be considered dual use, in the right use cases. And it's timely that you bring that up. I was just at an event in LA last week where we were talking about MobSquad at the Consul General of Canada in LA at the official residence, and it was us, but along with many other provinces and others that were basically speaking about the different funding opportunities that are available across the country that we're aware of now. And the interesting thing with this is that there's not only a lot of opportunity, but this can also, there are opportunities at the federal level. There are opportunities that are regional, so like Western Canada and Atlantic Canada. There are options that are provincially specific, and there's even municipally specific options. And so, and these also range from, equity investments, really importantly, non-dilutive investments, and debt opportunity as well, sometimes on favorable terms. So getting the lay of the land there is important. It does take some time and energy to understand it all, because there's a lot of different agencies that have jurisdiction over these different funding vehicles. And so that understanding can be important, and there's a few ways to do that. You can obviously go online and try and find this information and read on, some of the announcements that have come out. But there's also really, really smart and experienced people in Canada who have been navigating this for a long time, so they can help you understand, like, if this is what you're doing, this is how you access this and that, or this is what would apply best to your specific business. I'm sure Stevie actually can
I
speak
was about to
directly
say,
to
if
that.
you need to talk to the federal government or navigate, we do what we say is we like to navigate, translate, and matchmake with the federal government. So, but on the dual use piece and the defense piece, I would just add, do think outside the box. So energy security is part of defense. So if you are protecting sort of oil of energy corridors, that could, your technology could do that for sure. There are dual use capabilities here from the wildfire piece where that would be considered defense. Public health can be considered defense. So if you're looking at ways to prevent sort of wildfire and the smoke and devastation to the health of a local community, that could also be something that could be considered in the defense space. I don't think we have a final sort of definition of what that could look like. So there are a lot of smart people looking for ways to really roll all of these things out.
Yeah. I think you just both answered the sort of last question we have for you, but I'll give you a little bit of time to answer, which was if you were a wildfire tech CEO, what should you, thinking about Canada, what you should do right now? I would say, one, listen to this podcast. Two, call Arif and Stevie, and then come to our event in June in Edmonton. But anything else that sort of advice from sort of the people on the ground? Stevie, we'll start with you. And of course, visit Barrick Hill Public Affairs website, get in touch with Stevie. But anything aside from what we've said so far, that sort of tips of the trade?
I would keep monitoring what's coming out at the federal and provincial governments. There is what happens when you're moving really fast is that we can't always, it's not the slow speed of government anymore. So there are constantly new initiatives. They're not exactly startup, move fast and break things, but they are definitely willing to take more risks and try new things. So there are maybe a program out in 6 months that didn't exist today that might really suit what it is that you're trying to do. So I think it's a matter of staying informed and on top of things as they develop.
Yeah. Arif, you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple important things. Yeah, like I said, talk to experts. There are corporate attorneys, immigration attorneys, local expertise groups that specifically help with navigating the different arrangements and all of that. And I think that can really help you understand the market better. And then I would encourage people to also just visit Canada. It really helps. Specifically going to the locations you're thinking about operating, doing business, whether that's, setting up your own shop or working with partners there. It can really help. And, I can speak to this just from our own experience. Like when we were opening in Halifax, like what really helped us move that decision forward and realize it was something that we were super interested in was just our team went there and we met the people that we'd be working with. We met some of the, partners both in government and in business. We got a good feel for the city, and it really encouraged us actually that this was the right thing to do. And also provided us with a ton of local knowledge that is really hard to get, necessarily on a call or on, just reviewing a site or something. So, those are, I guess, the pieces of advice I would give.
It's very good advice. And of course, come to Edmonton in June for our Anchorpoint Fire Tech Summit 2026. We'll post how to get involved in all of that as we post this show. But Reva, I want to thank Arif and Stevie for joining us here. We hope to see you again. This has been super insightful. I took like tons of notes to share both along with the show, but also with folks looking to expand into Canada and bring their tech and expertise here as well. So appreciate it.
Thank you. This was a great
discussion. Thanks for having us.
Well, we loved it. We're going to say goodbye to you, Arif and Stevie, and Reva. We'll close it up.
Excellent. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah, that. Thank you for listening. That was a great conversation with Stevie and Arif. Reva, it's really. First of all, I think I love Canada. You don't have to tell me that, but it is a unique place to do business and one that is open for business right now.
100%. And like it's getting faster, bigger, and more right now, right? So it's a great time to look at Canada.
Yeah, even the dual use that Stevie was talking about going from now reaching the 2% to 5% in the coming years. But if this conversation sparks something for you, a new idea, a new question, or a new connection, and we encourage you to get in touch with both MobSquad and Barrick Hill Public Affairs, share this episode with someone who should be part of it. We're always looking for more guests. And you can follow the Anchorpoint on YouTube and on LinkedIn, as well as our website, theanchorpoint.news, and join the broader conversation by subscribing to our newsletter. And Reva, until next time.
Until next week. Take care, Jay. This was great.
Everybody.